Zimbabwe, Mrs. Ahmed, Mrs. Bulaki, my friends and colleagues, and those joining us online, good afternoon. I was asked this morning, Yusuf, talk about the future. And I thought, what will the future look like? So I decided to wear a pink sock just to say that the future is rosy, but also bright. I'm not the last speaker because if you're in an Arab country, you start from left to right. So I'm actually the first speaker of the day because we start the other way around. My discussion will be very short. I will discuss about the perspective of the future of the manufacturing industry from a private sector perspective. Let me just remind you that this year, the MCCI, the Mauritius Chamber of Commerce, celebrated its 172nd birthday. So we were even born before the London Chamber of Commerce, so we are not that young. So I'm going to, first of all, give you a quick overview of the sector, of Mauritian manufacturing sector, some numbers which have been repeated. Significantly, we export almost 2.4 billion. Right? This is the size of the Mauritian manufacturing sector, employing about 90,000 people. That is just for the manufacturing. Most importantly, I would also focus on the SME sector, which include manufacturing, but also services sector, which employs a significant amount of Mauritian to the tune of almost 50% of Mauritian people are employed in the SME sector. And they are engine for growth, engine for sustainable development, and engine for empowerment of women, and also for the people who are working in industry. And also employs almost 280,000 people. And these are some of the sectors that we focus on, mainly in the sector of clothing, which have been discussed earlier, agro-processing, in terms of sugarcane industry, which we are an expert at some point, seafood, jewelry, pharmaceutical, and light engineering, some highlights of the strength of the sector itself. It's been repeated in the COVID. I think we're grateful to government from a private sector perspective. We've talked about the public-private partnership, which has worked well, and it is working. I think with the support of government during the COVID-19, we've been given a lot of support in terms of government assistance to wages, in terms of interest-free loan, and a lot of mechanism has worked. Having not had these support, a lot more SMEs would have been in difficulty going forward. I think we are thankful to government. This is why it's important to have the public-private sector dialogue and partnership where we're able to ensure that the sector become strong. Before we go any forward, whether it's with COVID or without COVID, I think the industry needs to look at itself and decide what is the future looks like. I put on this slide 4 areas that we as an industry and as private sector to redefine what the future is like. The changes are significant in terms of consumer demands, which is in the dark green, in terms of the different changes in consumer demands, in terms of conformity, in terms of perception of what the consumer wants. I think that is important for all of us when it comes to SME development and also as an industry. Second, about the nature of the products. I think most SMEs fail to understand that the nature of products are changing. I think it's important to look at why it's changing and to understand the changes in these nature of the product. Third, and most important, is the whole economics of value chain. We as SME in the past used to focus on our goods and ourselves and our market. That has changed. We work in an ecosystem where the supply chain is significant, and it's important that we look at the different opportunities in the supply chain and work along this chain. And finally, the economics of production. We used to do things the way we wanted to do. Our grandparents used to do it. The son takes the same adoption of the same patterns of production, but that is changing. There's more digitalization, there's more absorption of technology. All these are important as understanding the future of manufacturing. The private sector initiatives are key. What are the drivers of these future manufacturing? The first one is look at the global value chain or the regional value chain. We tend to forget. We think as private sector, as industry, we are good at what we're doing. but we are not looking at what's happening in the world in the value chain. And if you don't look it in that sense, you will be left behind. Secondly, in terms of data analytics, we think we know what we're doing well, but the data are showing something completely different. I think it's important to look at these data. There's more cyber physical production using technology. There's more circular economy and remanufacturing. A small island nation have a problem with waste, but waste is an asset that I think has to be used. Additive manufacturing is the future. The robotics in terms of 3D design, in terms of services, linking production and services is also key area to look into. And also the manufacturing in the region. COVID-19 has shown that you cannot be dependent on raw material from India or China, but you have it in the region. And the speed to market is key. That is important. I'll give you a simple example. Companies who were buying garments from China in big volume, when the COVID happens, companies, importers like Zara do not need big orders. So they came to Mauritius. Woolworth in South Africa came to Mauritius and said, yes, we know you can do your production in small quantities, but speed to market was key. So I think these are some of the areas that has facilitated and has helped SMEs to ensure that we can deliver the goods. And this is why export has been able to maintain its numbers. And most importantly, in terms of digital infrastructure. And finally, the cross-domain skill is important. We as the private sector firmly believe that if we do not have the skills required for the future of manufacturing, it's not going to happen. And as a region, and us as UNICA and the UN and all the parties here, I'm requesting that we look at the skill required in the region, because people move nowadays, and it's important that we get it right. And that takes time. You know, a diamond polishers take 5 years to train. A jeweler takes about 7 years to train. Somebody who does watchmaking takes 6 to 7 years to train. I think it's important that we look at this angle in terms of cross-domain skills. Next, as a private sector, we always advocate government to do things differently. I'm not going to focus on the left-hand side of that, but I'm going to focus on the right-hand side. The future manufacturing focuses on addressing the gap in terms of performance and capabilities, and help to understand the evolution of manufacturing countries. That is key. We are no longer looking at competitiveness. Yes, you are competitive. You may not be competitive, but if you address the gap, you will succeed. And also, we can look at export quantity and quality, productivity and production factors. These are the old school. But if you can identify gaps, I think it's important for us to be able to succeed. And this is sometimes the failure of most SMEs in the African continent, because they tend to look at the old way of doing things. Secondly, inform business and government leaders through knowledge connection about preparedness for drivers or manufacturing. It's only when things go wrong, then we react. But I think being proactive is important as a private sector, anticipate and look beyond. And finally, looking at the acknowledged and increased conversion of skills. If you are to start as somebody in the industry with certain skill, you need to upskill. There are new material coming on the market, which sometimes we don't understand. We're always using old material to produce what we tend to produce. And also production methods are changing and focuses on higher value added products. Previously, we were always thinking that it's important to increase percentage of manufacturing in the gross domestic product. That is no longer the key. If you focus on new material, conversions of skill, production methods, that is going to make the industry more resilient and stronger, and will succeed. I think just to a quick highlight of what has been mentioned in the industrial policy and strategic plan by the government. I will focus on the last two aspects. These improve access to finance. I think what Mauritius has done is something fundamentally correct. They have come up with the Industrial Financial Corporation of Mauritius to support SMEs to have access to good finance. Not only finance, but support to the industry support in terms of factoring, support in terms of leasing equipment, because sometimes it is not about cash, but it's about having the support in terms of leasing and factoring to ensure working capital. Companies can have cash, but it's tied in asset. But if you have a problem with working capital, I think it's key to look at how we look at finances in this sector itself. And also, most importantly, improving market and regional export capabilities. We can do it. But it's about us as a team, as a group, as Chamber of Commerce, talking to each other, looking at the skills, looking at the opportunities. And this is why at the Chamber, we have initiated a project with UNDP looking at the business intelligence platform. So today I want to know, what is the price of macadamia in Kenya, the cashew nuts in Mozambique? Because when we think of cashew nut, we think of India. No, cashew nuts are grown mostly in Mozambique. And we don't know who are the producers, at what value is being sold. The biggest buyer of vanilla or Coca-Cola, they go to Madagascar. They don't go to Madagascar, they go to France. But vanilla is made in Madagascar. And that is an area where we have the strength, but we don't know that we need a platform where we have a business intelligence platform where people can connect. We know what is availability of certain goods. We just had a cyclone in Mauritius, and first reaction is go and import onions and tomatoes from India. But we know in La Réunion, which is next door to us, you can get it. But we don't know what is available in stock, and there are stocks available. So these are things that needs to address in terms of access to different markets. We have discussed about industry foundation, strengthen it. We talk about upgrading of value chain. We talk about the domestic and supply, regional and global export market, but also in terms of advanced technology. I will focus maybe 2 minutes. Pierre, j'ai combien de temps avec toi? Pas beaucoup? 6 minutes. Ah, c'est bon alors, 6 minutes. Of all these slides, the discussion I had today, I want you to remember only that slide from Mauritius. I'll tell you why it's important for us and for all of you here present. 5.6 billion people is our market size for Mauritius. This is the access we have in terms of goods, services, but most importantly, in terms of quota-free and duty-free of many products. So can you imagine a small island of 2,000 square kilometers, but with a big sea area of almost 2 million square kilometers, have access to so many markets, but we don't use it. And this is where I want to put emphasis on why it's important to be able to leverage on this ecosystem. We are from SADC, we have a lot of entrants in terms of product, but we only export to South Africa goods and services. We are not half. And it cannot be like this. COMESA is the same thing as well. Mauritian contribution to COMESA and SADC are insignificant, 0.2, 0.8%. Not good. We also recently joined the AFCTA, which came into force. We have an agreement with USA in terms of AGOA. We are in agreement with the UK Economic Partnership Agreement, with the EU, with Turkey, who have access to our market. We have the Comprehensive Economic Partnership with India,